Okay. Good evening, everyone. I see a lot of people joining in pretty quickly. So we'll wait for another minute or two so that the rest of the audience can also join in and tune in and ask as many questions as possible to Olga. So we'll wait for another 2 minutes and then we shall start.
Pulkit, if you could just ping the link over the chat as well. So a couple of requests I have got on the DM, I will just forward it to the
Uh,
meeting link.
okay, understood. Let me just share that with you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got that. Did you receive it, Olga? And Chetan, can you
Yeah,
hear us
got
now?
it. I got it.
Okay, so one more minute and then we'll start. Okay, so thanks so much everyone for joining in. We'll start the webinar right now. Uh, Today we have Arga along with us, and essentially the topic for today's session is cracking AI/ML and analytics jobs through targeted projects. Um, Before we get into like introducing Arga altogether, I just wanted to give you an understanding of the breakdown. The first 15 to 20 minutes is where Alka will take us through the elements that he wants to talk about in relation to the agenda that we have for today. And the remainder, like the 35 to 40 minutes, we focus more on the Q&A because a lot of you will have profile-centric questions and we don't want to be vague. We want to be as direct as possible and have the most amount of information with us. Um, Keeping that in mind, please ensure that if you have any questions, those are um, raised on the Q&A section, not in the chat section, because once we have the Q&A right, what we'll do is we'll make sure we start from the beginning and then we answer to the bottom, right? So we don't end up missing out anything from any questions that have been asked by the audience. Okay, so give me one quick second. I'm just going to share my screen. Aga, can you see this?
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. So uh, we just have one slide, which is going to be introduction, and after that, Aga will take over and essentially take you through the topics via the whiteboard that he has, which he enjoys. So essentially, as you can see, Aga Mukherjee is the speaker that we have today. He has more than about 4 years of experience in the IT industry, and he's currently working as an AI engineer. He's completed his BE in computer science and engineering and holds a postgraduate diploma in ML and AI. And like many of you, he has done that from upgrad, and he's also completed his specialization in ML and AI through LGMU. So that's the MSc that we're going to be talking about. So he was in your shoes a couple of years ago, and right now he's on the other side. He's an expert that we call on. So that's the kind of growth that he has seen. He has also worked with some of the biggies that I call Amazon, Dell, and IBM Watson. Those are the kind of clients that he gets to work with in the current company that he's in. He has a pretty stellar LinkedIn profile that what I'll do is I'll share it in the chat box so that if you want to go visit his site, like visit his profile and send him a request, you can do that as well. But yeah, that's about Arga. He's one of our extremely esteemed alumni, as that's how I would put it. So yeah, Arga, over to you, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Pulkit. So I'll quickly take everyone through the journey, like as they have already heard about my experience so far. So probably as per the agenda, I'll try to make them understand. So guys, if you have any questions for me, anything in between, feel free to drop on the Q&A. Pulkit will be monitoring that, and later we can take that up. So I'll quickly share my whiteboard. I hope my whiteboard is visible, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So right now, like I come from a background where I have started my career with operations. So when I was in Amazon, I was in a profile called as TRMS, which was in operations, and this was with Amazon, right? After that, I was working with UST Global, and the client project was of Dell, that was into data engineering. And right now, as you mentioned, I have been working with CTS Tech Healthcare on like IBM projects here, and that is into AI, right? So now, how I made these transitions, because I see that a lot of people have been into different background, probably different industry like mechanical, electrical, and all, and they are trying to move towards IT, or they are focusing on any specific scenario. So I'll cover those things first and explain the path. So when we try to look into the job market, right, there are two categories mostly which we focus on. One is into analytics, and second is into development. So now, if we talk about the job roles which we target here, mostly those are into business analyst, data analyst, business intelligence, data science. These mostly comes under the analytics. Now, when we go towards development, so the job roles like ML engineer, AI engineer, NLP engineer, deep learning engineer, then MLOps engineer. Then we have specialized frameworks in deep learning, which is TensorFlow, Keras, and PyTorch. So those are like TensorFlow developer and these profiles, right? So now, what exactly is the difference between if we target these kind of roles or if we target these kind of roles? So what exactly is the difference between these profiles? Because analytics looks similar to us. Like when we try to understand or we target any specific company, so we see that okay, business analyst role is mentioned, but there are differences. Like the requirement differs from company to company. Even if we talk about ML, AI, NLP, deep learning, and also here also we see that more or less people might call the profile it as data science, but the job role aspect is different, right? So I'll try to explain in a generic way what exactly is data science and like how this is different. So for an example, if there is a scenario where we are working on a case study, like suppose there is a company who manufactures XYZ product here, okay, and this product is sold into multiple ways, probably through retail outlets, probably through online stores, probably through maybe direct customer dealing or any way. And we see that okay, there is a specific growth which is coming in from here, from here, from here, and maybe at this point the growth is very less, right? So now we have this data and we are trying to project this. So we do our calculation, we do evaluation, cleaning the data, and after that we create visualized graphs. So this process is called as analysis, okay? And if we are using tools like Power BI, Tableau, SPSS, or different tools, then that comes under analytics. So this is the difference, but the process remains the same, the task remains the same, the objective remains the same. Now what happens, there is a very common difference between data science and analytics. So if suppose I am understanding this data that okay, this is what is coming in, and we conclude that okay, at this point there is something going wrong, that's why the sales are less. There can be any reason, there can be reason due to price or quality or whatever. So now if we try to find out that okay, exactly why this is happening, that is asking the right question, that comes into data science. So this is the difference. The tools, the mechanism, the concepts again remains the same. So now if I take like a broader picture here, so for an example, when we start working with data, our first step lies in data, right? Just Yeah. So our first step lies in data. So now when we have data residing at any place, it can be diversified, it can be into different fragments. For an example, we have 5 places where the single agenda related data is stored, right? So our first step is that we pull the data from here, from all the sources together, and we incorporate it at one file. It can be like a Excel file or a text file or any file needed. So we have the data here. Now when we extract this process is called as extraction. After that we start pre-processing it. So pre-processing means, as probably you all are aware of, like EDA, then other different mechanisms where we try to shortlist the data which is not relevant for our story, or which is not which may not be relevant in future as well. So we remove those things and all. So this is called as the pre-processing step. After that, the next step is processing. So now this is the place where we put all the algorithms, right? So here what happens, suppose we are handling data which can be in different category, like the data can be related to text, or data can be related to image or video, xyz, different places. And in text also there can be different scenarios, like we are trying to detect spam or maybe auto correction and all those. So some of the algorithm comes under the part of machine learning, and some of the algorithm comes under the part of AI. Okay. So now once we have this done, like the processing is done, everything is sorted, so the next step what we do is to draw conclusions here. This conclusion goes towards mostly like a graphical conclusion when we try to draw any projection or any prediction of that sort. Or the next option is that we try to find an unknown value. Like for an example, say tomorrow you're working with Apple as a business analyst, right? And Apple launches iPhone every year. So you know that, okay, Apple will launch iPhone 14 this year. Last year, iPhone 13 was launched. Previous year, iPhone 12 was launched. So what should be the price of iPhone 14 so that iPhone 11, 12, 13 also goes up in the terms of sales by XYZ percentage, right? So these kind of calculations, if you want to draft, or if you are creating a model and deploying that model somewhere, like for deploying, we probably can use hardware, software, or even cloud. So this is the broader picture what exactly we do. So now if I draw a line from here like this and this, and if you see this part, this goes into the job role of a business analyst or a data analyst. The difference is, in business analyst we try to focus on a specific segment in a specific goal oriented way. In data analyst role or data analysis role, we try to understand the data and just draw conclusions. We do not have an objective for the business here, right? Now, so this part comes under DA, data analyst, and business analyst. Now once we have that, this is extraction. If we include this as well into this process, an entire story what we are doing here, that becomes as business intelligence. That is why in business intelligence we learn Hadoop, Hive, Kafka, SQL, and all these things into depth, advanced SQL mostly. So these things related to the data pulling or maybe data ingestion and all, right? Now after that, if I including this, like even I'm included this as well. So this is my recent inclusion here. Now with this, if I include the model building as well here, not deployment, just the model building, this becomes data science. Okay. And then when we are doing the same thing with any specialized form of algorithm, like for an example, image recognition, voice recognition, or speech synthesis, anything of that sort, which is complicated, which needs multiple layer of processing and all. So this comes under the part of ML development or AI development. And when you deploy, monitor and all, this is called as ML ops. Okay. So this is the overall life cycle, what exactly we do. So now, right now, as we are going through the curriculum, so what happens, we usually do this through Jupyter Notebook, where we upload a data file and then start processing it. But in real time scenario, we do a lot more than that. In like when we are talking about job perspective, when we are working in any scenarios that, okay, this kind of objective is there and we have to focus on that. So if you facilitate this entire thing through one single framework, that is called as MLOps framework. Like, to name with some of them are dcube, then ml flow, cube flow, majorly. So these are some of the frameworks in this, right? So now I hope these things are clear to everyone. If you have any questions, I'll take it later. So now why am I explaining you these things? because it is very important to understand the relation between all this, else it is very difficult to crack interviews, right? Now I'll tell you the best way and probably the agenda for today, the one which we are targeting. So how to focus on jobs. Okay. And when I say jobs, so I'll give you a brief background what I am doing right now. So when I started my journey with Upgrad, that was in 2020, and that time I have, like, I took a transition into an AI role within 7 months of my journey. So when the journey started here, so this was the journey. I took a transition here into an AI role within 7 months. Then when I moved ahead, I have completed my masters now, and I have around 1 year experience here working with AI. So here, when I'm completed my masters, I'm getting multiple opportunities in from India as well as abroad. Recently, like I have got, if to name with few companies, there is a company named Klibu, works from Finland. Then Robert Bosch India. Then there is another company called Scholar. So that also operates, I think, from US, New Jersey. And yesterday, like I came across an offer from Google, so that like probably screening and all those things would be there going ahead. So these kind of opportunities start knocking up the door. But how exactly this is happening? What exactly did I do? I also studied the same curriculum, right? Many people have reached out to me saying that we are not getting transition, or we are not getting job offers, or maybe interview calls. So there is a specific way to target these, right? So what exactly I did here within 7 months, when I started my journey here, my goal was very clear that I want to make a transition somewhere in between, right? Somewhere in between. Month was not fixed, but I had a target that I will make a move. So what I did, I started looking out through LinkedIn, Naukri, and all different job hunting portals, and I look for data science, machine learning, and AI. These three roles and responsibilities are what exactly is expected in the market. I browsed through 50 or 100 jobs. Then I made a list that okay, these are few of the things which are common in every requirement. I'll give that here as well. And then I try to target domains, not companies, because targeting company is a very wrong approach. If suppose, the reason why I'm saying, if suppose for an example there is a company who works purely with NLP, and you have prepared extensively with NLP, you have done your all research, studied and all, you went ahead NLP and you did not crack the interview. Then if you're targeting the next company who works probably with deep learning only, no NLP, so that is the reason domain is very different than targeting companies, right? So if you see the requirement, like for an example, if I talk about data science or ML or AI, right? So what is the difference here? When I talk about data science here, the requirements are Python, basics, and the libraries involved in data science. Then SQL, Excel, advanced Excel, good to have. Excel is mandate, advanced Excel, good to have. Visualizations through tools, mostly Tableau, Power BI, Plotly, SPSS, anything like this way. Now, if you go to the ML part here, here the expectation is that the person should be aware of Python, like ML and AI together I'm talking about. So the person should be aware of Python, along with Python object-oriented programming concepts. It means classes, methods, functions, and all. So here the difference is that Python we are learning here also. But the way we operate, the way we work, that little bit differs here, right? Then here SQL is a good to have, not a mandatory skill. After that, what comes into the position, I would say, is most likely how you align the algorithms, how you align the frameworks. Like if you're targeting companies regarding NLP, so then you should be aware of at least one framework. For an example, size spacey, or maybe transformers like BERT, these concepts. If I talk about deep learning, then you should be aware with either one of the framework like TensorFlow or Keras or PyTorch. So this is a wide expectation here. Now, how you can target specific domains, I'll tell you. So what I did, I kept three domains in target. One was healthcare, second was automotive, third was finance, right? Now, if you start thinking that, okay, what exactly is healthcare doing? What kind of data they have? What problems are they trying to solve? So you will come across a lot of things like healthcare has data related to medical prescriptions, right? Which is in text. Then they have X-ray images, MRI scans, different maybe video reports. So those comes under the category of image and video. So now once we start processing it, we know that okay, when it is text, we are using NLP. When it is image or video, we are using deep learning. Same goes with automotives. So we know that if I talk about automotive sector or maybe forensics or security sector where we are using drone surveillance and all. So here mostly we use image, videos and all those things for processing, right? So here the situation is like we use mostly deep learning, computer vision, and along with that other functionalities which is needed. If I talk about finance here, so in finance, multiple things, probably to check the eligibility of loan, to automate the IVR. So when we are automating the IVR, we are going through a chatbot. That chatbot is built in a specific algorithm. Then if you're trying to see if the checks are fraud or not, so that check has to be read. So the check is an image. From image, we are reading the text. This is called as OCR, optical character reading. And then again, this comes under the category of computer vision. So this is how we should target domains, then pick companies and projects around it, that okay, this is the story, this is what is happening and all. For an example, if suppose someone aspires to work with Amazon or Microsoft, okay, so now if you are aware of what they are doing, it helps to be in a better shape. Like right now, I was doing some research and I found out that Microsoft and Amazon, probably Google as well, they're working on a specific segment where they're trying to create a chatbot maker. Like right now we are aware of a chatbot here. So what happens when we are creating a chatbot? We feed questions and we get answers here, right? So this is the normal operation of chatbot, but we are not making it generic. So what Amazon, Microsoft, they are doing, they are basically trying to create a segment where you would provide data. This data will create the chatbot, and the chatbot will have these functionalities. That project is called as Lex. So now suppose for an example, if I am trying to work with Amazon going ahead again, and if I want to work with this project or this team, so my goal will be first to understand what this is all about, then try to create a POC or do research around it. That is the best way to do it. And probably that is the reason like I am getting these kind of calls, because I have been into these kind of POCs now and then, right? So what exactly I did in masters, I'll tell you, like what kind of topic and how I picked up a topic, because I come across a lot of questions where people ask that, okay, how do we pick a topic? We don't know what kind of topic, we have never done research before. So I'll just explain it in a very simple way. So what happens in masters, if you're trying to pick a topic, right? My strategy is very simple. It has to be either your past or your previous domain, or it has to be your future domain. So if I give my example, so for an example, in past I have been with Amazon, then I was working on UST global projects with Dell, then I was working, right now I'm working with CTS Tech Healthcare, right? So if you see the broader picture here, Amazon is what? E-commerce. Dell is retail. CTS Tech is healthcare again. So now if you see again, try to break down into concept wise in terms of machine learning. So in all the three, we use majorly NLP and recommendations, because when there is retail, we see someone buying something, we recommend something. That is a generic understanding, right? Now if I talk about my future, so I aspire to work with automotive someday, and maybe forensics, drones, surveillance and all. If you see the bigger picture here, it is deep learning and computer vision, right? So now I wanted to do research around something which enables me to get more clarity on what I'm doing today, as well as shapes me up for the future. So I picked up a topic which includes NLP, which includes deep learning and includes computer vision. Plain and simple. I did, and I targeted healthcare because I am right now working with healthcare, so it will give me more understanding. But if you are someone who is trying to make a transition, or if you are not from any development background, if you are suppose trying to go towards any specific segment, like for people who are from data science field and maybe taking analytics into the curriculum and they're trying to focus on analytics, then accordingly you can make a move, right? So in analytics also, what happens, there are different companies, like for example Deloitte works in 4 segments. One of the segment works purely into analytics, so that targets any specific kind of roles, right? So I'll show how to pick these topics. I'll just share my screen again. Yeah. So if you see this if you see this, so there is a site called as Papers with Code. This site probably most of you would be aware of. So if you go to this website, you would see that a lot of recent researches have been come up. Like this is 23rd March 2022, recent, very recent, right? 24th March 2022, even more recent. So you see that there are different categories which are shown as trending and all here. So now if you want to understand, okay, what topic will be helpful for you, and probably how you will get the data, if you get the data, will you be able to understand it or not, these kind of things, right? So go to this browse state of the art here. Okay, so here what happens, computer vision, natural language processing, medical, these kind of segments are created here. These kind of segments are created if suppose you are interested to work with deep learning, for an example, on NLP. Let's take NLP. So if you click on this, it will show you in NLP also different category of problems like language modeling, question and answering, machine translation, data augmentation, and all these things, right? Now suppose if I want to create a Q&A, something like this. So I'll go to this. I'll see there are different comparisons which are already published here. And these comparisons are in terms of algorithm, in terms of performance, in terms of data, multiple things. So now if you go down, you will see there are code attached to it. So if you click on this link, it will take you directly to the GitHub for reference code, and here you will have your entire code, entire things mentioned here, right? Everything is mentioned here like this. So you can take a reference, come back. Now if you go here, see, here you would have data sets. These are the data sets available. This is something which we can use if suppose you have a specific data set which is not working out for you, which can be the other one. You can take a reference from here. Now if you go down, you would see there are different research papers published. So for an example, I'm opening this, right? So now here what happens, like there is a description given here. After that, it will go to the code again, and if you click on this, it will take you to the GitHub link. Here there are different rankings that, okay, based on what algorithm, what is the ranking, what kind of model they have used and all. So you can take a reference that, okay, probably which one is good for your use case and all. Now if you go to this link, this PDF, it will take you to the research paper directly. So in this research paper, if suppose someone is curious, like I have got this question a couple of times, that Arga, when we are trying to find a topic, these topics are already done. What is there for us to do? So my answer is simple: go to the conclusion, read what they were about to conclude, then read the future scope and read the introduction and abstract. You will understand what they wanted to do and what they have achieved. After that, the next goal is automatically there. Most of the papers will have a future scope that, okay, this is something which you can do additionally apart from this, right? So if you go to this paper and scroll down completely, most of the paper have, and again, then one more conflict what I face that I have came across multiple times is that there are no research paper attached to the similar topic. So I say that go to the reference. In the reference there are so many papers available. Copy one name, search in IEEE, Explore or Google Scholar. Simple. So there you will get multiple topics related to this, right? So now coming back to this page here, if suppose for an example, say you are someone who is not sure what you want to do exactly in terms of analytics and in terms of development, I'll tell both. So for an example, let's take analytics first, and you are someone who wants to work maybe with finance, or if you're not sure at all, just search here analytics and enter. That's it. You will get so many research topics around it. Okay, if you are someone who is interested in on finance, right? So there is something called as quantitative finance, which I came across recently, that multiple, I would say multiple research has been going on. Quantitative series. So these kind of research papers, if you see, so these are related to quantitative finance, right? So accordingly, many people think that, okay, around data engineering, we do not have enough research topics. I would say there are. So search with data engineering, okay? Now see, these are all related to data, right? This is something workflow engine streaming data. What is this? Kafka. Kafka means streaming data. Like for an example, we have Netflix. So Netflix, in that, what do we do? We usually browse data, and that data is being thrown to us directly. We do not download it anywhere. It can be from mobile or laptop. We can download, but the primary requirement is not downloading. It's basically directly using that whatever data we have. So these are related to data engineering. These are related to analytics and all. And suppose now coming to the domain part, if suppose you want to work with healthcare and you want to search a topic around NLP, search healthcare and NLP, enter. See, this kind of topic pops up, right? So multiple topics are there, multiple data sets are available. If you just want to view the data sets, go here to data sets. See, there are so many category, more than 6,000 data sets available which you can download. If I filter just with medical, more than 224 results here, different categories, right? So here in masters, the expectation does not comes as creating an end-to-end production level code. Here the expectation is that you should be able to prove your concept, what you're trying to do. Basically, we have to design the POC that this is what we are planning to do, and this kind of documentation we have, and this is what exactly the story is all about, right? So end-to-end implementation, that is what is needed, right? So this is something about the masters and how masters actually helps. Now probably you guys might think that, okay, whatever I'm saying, uh, how to validate that, right? So I'll show you. See, this is my LinkedIn, which Pulkit was showing a couple of minutes ago. So now there are few things which are very important, that whenever you talk about anything, right? For an example, you are focusing on machine learning or AI. So in that, what happens, that multiple times we try to find out, and our profile says something else. Like probably your profile is updated everything, but your profile is not giving a clear picture what you are doing. So if you see my profile here, I have a banner here of AI, technical discussion. So it is a LinkedIn forum which I host. Then if you see the hashtags which gets generated automatically, and here, okay, so let's wait for the poll. I think, yeah,
I think Aga, you can carry on.
yeah,
The poll will go on. Yes.
okay, okay, sure. Okay. So now if you see this part, so here I talk about these things. I talk about hiring, I talk about machine learning, I talk about artificial intelligence, and specifically engineering students, how they can take placements and all. There are many people who are freshers and who want to enter into the ML and all curriculum. So I talk about these things, I share these things and all. So that's how the profile gets up. And if you see, so the profile views keep on going. Now apart from that, feature, like if I talk about some, the highlight posts would be the featured ones. So recently I was working with Shailen sir, and like he gave me a couple of opportunities to work with him. I have created a couple of videos with him. If you are curious, you can go to this link and go through them. So he has a channel as well, YouTube channel. So these things I have posted, right? So why I'm posting this, because from beginning, see, I'm giving an idea. Okay, I'm into ML. Here also I'm into ML. Go down. Here also I am into ML, something related to ML and analytics. If I'm going down, whatever post I am sharing, that is also talking about ML, SQL, data science, machine learning, and all, right? If you see the description, if how I put it, so I write keywords here because keywords are very important. The reason is because whenever there is a job, like whenever there is a job which is being, I would say, highlighted here, any specific thing, so that gets answered. Like there is a job listed on LinkedIn, so how will the person know that, okay, you are aware of these things? Or forget about percent. The main thing is that the algorithm, there is something called as ATS. I'll show that. So if you go to LinkedIn, just go to Google and search for ATS LinkedIn blog. So this is called as application tracking system. So how your applications are tracked when you apply for any job platform, any job portal, how your applications are tracked, and more than that, how those things are scaled up. If you read, you will understand. This is a simple blog. So what they do is they match your keywords, they match your intent, and they match your connections. So it means like if I'm connecting with say 100 people, among with 50 of them are from non-tech background or doing something different in life, different domain, in which only 10 people are doing into ML, and maybe another 40% of the folks are doing something offline work, right? So in that case, I will never get predictions of ML. But if that is the other way around, if I'm connecting with 100 people in which 90 people of 90% of the folks are working into data science, machine learning and all. So in that case, I would say it goes accordingly. You get suggestions, right? So this is something which is called as ATS, application tracking system. You can read about it more. And coming to next, so here if you see, I have mentioned specific algorithms and frameworks. The reason is because whenever you go through any job description, this is something which remains very important, right? Now if you go down, so it is very important to mention what exactly, like what kind of roles you have played. I have seen many LinkedIn profiles where they have just added the job description, but the keywords are missing, or maybe the key responsibilities are missing. So if this one I'm not updated because I'm presently working here. But if you see this part, so I have mentioned it, and do not use the words like I have created XYZ process, not like that. Because I may or may not be from the same organization, or the HR may or may not be from the same organization, right? So how will you understand that exactly what is going on, right? So that's why if you see this part, so I have mentioned as custom design algorithms. I have not mentioned which algorithm. I mentioned designed algorithm because it is generic, right? I don't want to mention exact words. Like if you see this description, so I have mentioned as tier service, top tier services. I have not mentioned which services, because people who are not from Amazon, they might not be aware of these kind of services, right? That does not make sense to add. Then add your educations, certifications, whatever you have. Take up the test. Now again, see, I have added 43 skills here, but if you see, the top three are coming to AWS, artificial intelligence, and ML, right? So entire profile should speak about that, including recommendations, including your suggestions, what kind of people you are connected with, what kind of people you have given suggestions or recommendation. That also plays a very vital role when you are going through these kind of job hunting sites, right? So I'll just take 2 more minutes and I'll show you one more thing. So when you are when you are trying to focus on jobs, right, regarding data science or ML and all, it is very important to mention what exactly you are doing in masters. I think my resume should be open here. Yeah. So see, this is how I structure my resume, and I don't think that this is. I don't say that this is the exact way you should do, but you can get an idea. So I have my email ID, my links, and all over here. Those are hyperlinks, and those are visible as well. The reason is because tomorrow, if there is an HR who is taking printout of this, so then if I have seen many LinkedIn profiles which has an arbitrary extension, that doesn't look professional, because if there is someone who is typing it, there are high chances that the person can make a mistake, or maybe in hurry that can go wrong. So keep it like a custom URL. You can create it, go to edit profile, create a custom URL there, and paste it there. Okay. Then if you see this part, so here I have added keywords, exact keywords, under data science, under deep learning, under NLP. This is important. Keywords are very important in everywhere, including resume, including your LinkedIn, each and every place, right? If I talk about my job role as well, here also I've added a lot of keywords. Now if I talk about this part, so whatever I have done in my masters here, I have mentioned those things here. Okay. Then just in 2 lines, I have just mentioned like I have done research on so and so. Now if someone is curious to know exactly what have I done, so I have given a link here. If you click on this link, it will take you to the YouTube video which I have created, and this YouTube video, see, so this is a 10-minute video where I've created a PPT and I've explained, right? So now it can be as simple as creating block diagrams, just simple as this. It need not have to be code, it need not have to be complicated diagrams. You can create a simple video, link it there. This is the best way to explain someone what you know about this project or any specific task, right? Now coming to this again. So if you see this part, I add one more section. This is my own interest, what I do. So I've added something called as individual projects here. So here I work on specific things. Now the reason why I've kept this, so as I mentioned, in future I aspire to work with drones, cars, and all. That is what conversions, image, somewhere or the other, right? Video to image conversion. So it is very important to create POCs, which I was referring to. Similarly, when we are working with large data, so how will you mine the data using different things? So I have kept those things here. And if you click on this link, it will take you to the GitHub directly. GitHub should has a README, like a plain README, 4 line, 5 line is more than enough. Whenever you're sitting for an interview, what HR and other people are interested to know is not about your work, like what exactly you did know. What was the thought process? What have you achieved? What were the issues which you faced, and how did you debug that? So that's why I make sure that I write those things, that what are the common errors here, how I recovered those. That is very, very important, right? Because if you try to, like tomorrow, suppose you sit for an interview with any company, and you think that, okay, this is what things are going on and left, right, here and there. So how will you understand that, okay, this, how things are shaping up, right? So then accordingly, you can suggest that, okay, see, these are the benchmarks what we can consider, or probably these are the mitigation strategies what we can follow, because you know that these errors might come. It may not be, but still there are 90% chances that you would have this error. So you already know an approach. It will save time and effort, and that will show that you have the depth of understanding. Anything. This can be followed in any way, into analytics, into data science, ML, anyway, right? Now, just lastly,
To a major leadership role.
right. See, 10 years is a big experience, right? So what happens in the career journey, which I have experienced so far, when you are someone who has less than 3 years experience, people treat you like a fresher, ideally. Then 3 to 5 years, like an intermediate, where they expect you to have technical skills. As you cross 5 year benchmark, 5 to 8 years, or maybe 5 to 10 years in that slab, so there people mostly look forward to some sort of decision making, and majorly into the tech. Now, as you mentioned that you have 10 years into the role and you want to get into leadership, so for you, decision making is something which is very, very important. If you are someone who is into, so I'm not aware of which curriculum you are in, but if you are suppose into analytics, then what you can do is you can move towards more like I would say like a business analyst. From business analyst, like not business analyst, basically senior business analyst or a consultant. From there, grow towards program manager, and then from program manager to product manager, product owner in that slab. If you are into analytics, if you are into technical, into development, right now into ML and AI curriculum and all, so you can start your career into data science or ML. Then choose a specific thing. Do you want to work with NLP? Do you want to work with deep learning or what exactly, right? Then focus on ML ops, because when you are into the leadership role of 10 plus years, so what matters is how you're structuring the entire scenario. Like tomorrow you can get a new framework to design. Like when I was working in one of the project, so the day I joined CTS, like the second day itself they gave me an architecture to design. Now that architecture had multiple constraints, including cost, including latency and all. So when you are designing an entire framework, including storage and all, you need to understand which is feasible for your organization, which is not feasible for your organization. So then AI strategy comes into picture.
Okay. The next question from Lavanya was, I think, could you please name a few more sites that you've used for projects or thesis?
See, most frequently I would say papers with code. Then there is IEEE Explore, Google Scholar. Apart from that, if you are going through the LGMU curriculum, so LGMU themselves have a specific library, and that library is also very wide, I would say. So that is good. Usually that is good. You can go through that.
Okay. Another question from a different Lavanya is, how do you get recommendations on LinkedIn?
Ask, just directly go and ask. And yes, there is a way to ask. So you cannot directly, so when you go to recommendation part and you click on ask for recommendation, it will generate an auto like directed message that okay, this is what is it, and like accordingly you can ask. But I would say my way, what I do, draft a recommendation. Suppose he is a manager or she is a manager and you have worked for 5 years with the person, right? So the person knows that whatever you have worked in. So write a recommendation, write a draft that hey, so and so, if you could recommend me based on the work which I've contributed towards this project, and also towards the ownership which I have taken into these things. So then the person knows that okay, you are trying to look forward to a recommendation around this area. Else it can be like a very vague discussion. So always draft your recommendation and send it to the person whom you want to take recommendation. And also more than that, give recommendations. But like even if you take less, it's important to give recommendation. That is when your profile gets acknowledged that okay, this person is not only working but also acknowledging other people's work. That is very important.
It goes both ways, right?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is from Sujit. Could you speak a bit more about the growth path within your organization? What are the kind of leadership roles that exist, and what do the leaders in your organizations drive specifically?
See, in my organization, what I have seen so far, that like I work as a senior software developer there. So above my level, it's a tech lead one, and then assistant manager in the same hierarchy. Then again, tech lead to assistant manager two and all. And after that, it goes towards either principal architect, which is into the technical line, or it goes towards a management. Now, if I talk about the leadership, what kind of leadership roles people play. So the person who is a CEO, he basically supervises on the broader level. Then below him in the hierarchy, the responsibilities usually deal with the segments. Like if I talk about healthcare, in healthcare there are multiple segments like payer, and also you would be aware that in healthcare also we have insurances also get settled. Similarly, treatments are there are different buckets. So each and every leader is usually handling one bucket and trying to grow that bucket. That is how every industry functions. Even in Deloitte also there are multiple segments. In Deloitte, like there is a segment which works from India, there is a segment from US, and there is a specific segment who works only in applied AI. So they try to grow that bucket, and accordingly you can climb up the ladder.
Perfect. Next, we have a question from Lavanya.
Mhm.
How much salary hike can we expect on moving to analytics roles with zero experience?
Analytics zero experience or total zero experience at all?
I
Like
think
if you, yeah, are you a fresher or you're starting just as an analytics? Is that your question, Lavanya?
Lavanya has mentioned she is working as a technical trainer for the past 4.5 years.
Okay.
She would love to be a data scientist. Would you please
Okay.
suggest the path so that I can move to a more corporate kind of a structure as a data scientist person?
Understood. So, Lavanya, see, as per as the hike, what I have seen in the industry, so usually the hike is between 50 to 60%, like average. Average, if I talk about, and it goes above as well, more than 100%, 120%, 150% as well. But if you want to get a good hike, the most important thing is that how you are implementing those concepts, whatever you have learned. Like as you have mentioned that you have completed the postgrad, and probably you have been into a couple of years into different roles into training, right? So now you are stepping into masters, and that increases the credibility. Secondly, when you say that you have zero experience, right, that is when masters actually kicks in. Because if you see multiple jobs, they have mentioned either you need 2 years or 3 years of relevant experience in this technology, or you need experience in, or you have should have a master's or a PhD degree. Multiple job descriptions have said that. So accordingly, you can pull and try to create one or small POCs, right? So I'll try to share one. I'll try to, okay, after this discussion towards the end, I will just share a link that is a case study from Deloitte. People who are interested towards analytics can definitely go through it. I believe that would be helpful.
Perfect. Actually, the next question is also somewhere related to for from Shravan. For
Hmm.
personal POC projects, we can take up existing real-time problems in brackets, which is already solved by others, but we will do it from scratch and solve it? Question mark.
Absolutely, you can take it to problem solve which people have solved. See, it's like if you are preparing biryani, there can be 10 different ways to prepare a biryani, right? It does not mean that, okay, there is a person is preparing biryani for last 10 years and you cannot do that. You can do that. You can prepare in different ways. The thing is, what exactly are you doing with it? So, are you using the same copy pasted scenario, or are you implementing something new, providing a different angle to it? What is your story? If you're picking up a problem statement and you are adding a functionality to it, that is good. Or if you are using the same problem but using a different logic, that also works. Do not copy paste the logic as well as the topic for your POCs.
There has to be something different, right?
Exactly.
If
Yes.
the end goal is similar, is expected, then the path is what is the differentiator?
Right.
Perfect. Then a question from Akash: How to build a strong GitHub and Kaggle profile?
See, many people I have heard saying that Kaggle portfolio is very important, right? That people write a lot of things in Kaggle, people write a lot of things in GitHub. My personal thinking is that, okay, it's good to have a profile, you can have, but it is not mandatory. What is mandate is to create a brilliant LinkedIn profile first, and then put your Kaggle and GitHub links there. So if you want to perform, if you want to practice, right, take part in Kaggle competitions and all, that will give you stars or different ratings which are there. In GitHub, whatever projects you are working on, try committing, not uploading. Because when you upload, no, what happens in GitHub, there is a history where you see that commits are reflected, and an entire portfolio opens up month by month, and you can see green dots there in the GitHub towards your contribution. So now how this helps, if you are someone, say, who is putting your GitHub link in your resume, and you are not committing anything, just uploading, and you send this to the HR, and HR will probably not know. But if the that goes for technical person, if I see this resume, I will first check that how many contributions are there. If there are zero, I will understand this is downloaded from somewhere and copied. So commit from your laptop, local laptop, office laptop, whichever way you are doing it, commit from your laptop and start building top on top of it. Work on small projects. Don't make a big project and then commit. No, work on small tasks. Write a simple Python code, Java code, whichever you are comfortable with. Commit.
Correct. Um, we have a question from Murali. Could you please
Mhm.
share the dissertation YouTube link?
My dissertation YouTube link. That for that you will have to wait for around 2 weeks, because right now that is my my evaluations are going on. So once that is there, definitely I can share. I'll share with Pulkit or any DL, whichever is there, definitely.
Perfect. The next question is from Pankaj. A lot of learners have this question. I'm not from the IT background.
Hmm.
Will it be difficult, or how difficult will it be for me to transition into an ML and AI?
See, ML and AI role, ML and AI, as far as you are understanding the concept, it will not be difficult because you will not be working alone in a project, right? There will be 4 or 5 people or more who will be working, and you will be working as a team. So when you're trying to solve a scenario, you would be working on multiple things that will be into bits and pieces. And even we Google, even I have an experience of more than a year with AI, still I Google. So everyone Googles. That's okay. But you should understand what to Google. If you are clear with that, things are good. It will not be very difficult. What I can suggest you, Pankaj, is that start reading about recent improvements, like whatever things are going on in the market. Like for an example, like as I mentioned about Amazon, right? So these kind of recent things are going on. Start reading about it so that you understand it in a better way.
Perfect. Next question from Bilal. And everyone, just a heads up, we have 5 more minutes, so we'll try to take as many questions as possible. But in case we're not able to answer your question, I have also sent something in the chat where you can write to us, and we'll ensure that we do like a one-on-one connect between you as well as Arga. He has been guiding a lot of our existing learners, as you could have seen from the email that he was showing. So if you require that, and if you're not able to answer your questions, please write to the email ID, mention the subject line, and we'll make sure that we get you connected with Arga specifically. Okay, the next question. Bilal says he will be targeting big four companies like Deloitte in the future. So, what kind of a domain and project should he be looking at? Any suggestions?
Definitely. I'm just pinging something over the chat. Give me a second. Just understand this case study and you're good. Okay. So I think just pinging it over the chat. Go through this. Whoever is interested in analytics, go through this case study. You will understand. It's a very simple discussion. So what happens here? There is a shoe market which they try to understand and understand the competitions and all. It's a very simple explanation. You can go through it.
Perfect. Vijay, he's already shared that. I think a lot of you would be able to see it. Please share it with just a second. Let me just copy it. Just 1 second, everyone. Yes, it will be visible. I've sent it to everyone now. You should all be able to see it. Okay. Next question is from Vasanthi. Can you please share any advice for people with many years of IT industry domain experience? What can be the focus here? I guess this is somewhat similar to the previous question in a way, right?
Yeah, so I'll just give a one-liner answer to this. See, Vasanti, when you are having multiple experience in different domains, right? It's important to pick up one domain which you want to either work with for a longer time or which you aspire a lot, and accordingly pick up the discussion. So, just I'm reading your question once again. Domain, definitely domain any day. Industry will never help you. The reason is because many people have a confusion between domain in which they consider tech stack. So domain is something which is called as, like for an example, healthcare is a domain and NLP is a tech stack. So if you're talking about that, I would recommend going with domain, not industry. Never. Even if you're a 1 year experienced person or a 30-year experienced person, picking industry is a mistake.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so two more questions. Um, the second last question from Vivek is, in making an end-to-end application using AI, what other tools slash technologies are required?
See, that answer can be I would say very diversified depending on what problem are you working in. But think in this way: if suppose you are creating a chatbot, okay, so this chatbot is the main core here. Now that chatbot runs on AI, and AI means NLP. So you know NLP concepts are needed here. Once you have the chatbot, how will you interact with the chatbot? You have to create something for that. So you need something to create the interaction part. Now when you have that, you get an answer, right? So that answer has to be given somewhere, either a paper or a file or a monitor or a screen, somewhere, xyz. So you need an input, you need the logic algorithm, you need the output. These three things are needed. Now fourth thing is, when you store these things, entire scenario, when you store the data, where will you store? Will it be a file? Will it be a JSON? Will it be a database? Figure out that. So these four things: input, output, logic, storage. If you can work on these things, you're good. And yes, obviously the computation, that how you are computing those things end to end.
Perfect. Okay, the last question for today, and I'm going to take a little more existential route because I think we've answered quite a lot of technical questions. We have Shravan who says that uh, do we also have to take care of factors like inflation, recession coming in a few years? How do we make ourselves careful on that while taking new jobs going
Okay.
forward?
So Shravan, I already answered this. I'll tell you one more in a different way. So as I mentioned, right, when you see what companies are doing, as you are into data science or ML, these kind of curriculums, these are the latest technologies in the industry, right? Probably maybe after 5 years something else will come in. So that is okay. But what you have to do is understand what companies are working on, what kind of domain structures people are following, or exactly what is going on. Like again, taking an example from Amazon Lex. So I'll share my screen. Just give me a second. I'll just reshare my screen and show you. Probably that would help everyone to understand. So if you see this, right, just Google Amazon Lex. Okay. So you will go to this homepage here. And if you go here, you go down, you see that this is what they are doing, right? Now, here, if you go to use case, they have different segment. For an example, say finance. So under finance, they have mentioned where exactly they are using and how they are using it. So as far as you understand what is going on in the industry and you can try to solve or probably give an approach, you are good. Recession, anything will not be a problem, because one more scenario is this thing, GitHub Copilot. I guess most of you would be aware of GitHub Copilot. So this is in collaboration with Microsoft. GitHub, Microsoft owns GitHub, and Copilot is developed by one of the company called as OpenAI. So if you read this, it is a AI pair programming tool. So basically, you write sentences and you create the, like, it creates a function. So now many people may say that okay, things can get automated. I would say yes, definitely things can get automated, but I want to be the one who automates that, because automation will again happen through data science and AI itself, right? So I want to be the one who is creating that and not using that. So if have that kind of a mindset that okay, this is what you should do. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. I think Arga, I've taken way more time than I have asked for. So first of all, thank you so much. The kind of comments and the responses that I've seen, I think a lot of people have enjoyed it, enjoyed the session, and they want a recording for sure, so that they can go back and listen to it once again. Just for everyone's reference, by Monday, like I mentioned on the chat, you will be receiving a recording of the session, and we'll also include maybe a form where you can ask for a one-on-one session with Arga over and above, right? Any other closing words, Arga, from your end to everyone?
Yeah, I would just say that whenever you are attending an interviews, just stay confident, because people there who are asking the questions might also be at the same position or maybe have just a little bit more experience. I have worked with many senior people in my journey so far. Stay confident and try to understand the problem statement more and more. Because if you don't understand, if you try to solve, most of the problem happens when we just plunge into the solution. So dig deeper, break the problem into smaller segments, ask questions. That okay, this is what I understand. Is this the right understanding? Or what do you suggest? How should I take it ahead? Take suggestions, take the understanding in that way. Accordingly, you will be able to solve the problem in interviews as well. Because primary focus, I guess, would be interviews, right? Now or maybe later sometime in your future.
Perfect. So take the first step, but take it confidence.
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Arga, for taking out the time on a Saturday. We appreciate the session that you've had, and you can see the number of messages we've got thanking you for such a motivational and informative session. And at the same time, I want to thank all the attendees who join in, because it's a two-way street, like Arga also mentioned. He's giving information at the same time you're asking great questions also.
Right.
So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Have a great weekend ahead, and thank you all.
Okay.